Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Force for Girls show. I'm Ricardo.
I'm Michelle.
And I'm Courtney. And it's Monday, so that means we are talking about our word of the week. And our word of the week we do on our 6 a.m. calls by, they're called the Dew 52 by House of Shine. And they're an adorable little set, and we draw a card each week. And this week, our word is strike. And let's see. So, strike, we have the definition by Webster right here: to aim and usually deliver a blow, stroke, or thrust, to arrive with detrimental effect, to attempt to undermine or harm something as if by a blow. Let's see. To lower a flag, usually in surrender. I thought that was a good one. But there's a lot of versatile definitions. But what do you guys think about the word strike? What came to mind?
A lot for me, but I'll let Michelle go first. Ladies first.
Yeah, this was an interesting word because so many times the word, we have to kind of ponder on it, but this one a lot came up too. One of the things that came up for me was like bowling a strike. And the definitions that you just talked about, some of them sound kind of negative, but I think they can be flipped and be considered a positive, like to bowl a strike. I can't remember the definition that you said that kind of goes along with that, but to strike, to strike with power or strike with force, but as firewalkers, and we can strike our goals with power or with force and hit all the pins if in terms of bowling.
That's what came to me. To me, the word strike is maybe because I'm a guy. So this is what's going to be interesting here is we're going to get some different perspectives. But it came across very aggressive. Strike and conquer. Go for it. Go for the blow. Strike. Attack your goals. Strike the stuff off your to-do list. To me, that's what came to me. Like, you got to strike. No, we don't have time to hesitate because you got to strike first and strike hard.
Yeah. For me, it was strike the opportunity, like when the opportunity strikes, run with it. And so I had a really positive kind of charged effort, the warrior inside, we have Michelle on, the warrior mentality of kind of like, okay, strike the next opportunity. So that was the aspect that resonated with me.
That's good because, Michelle, that's your word of the year, right? Warrior.
Word of the year. Yep.
So on the warrior sense, if you put yourself real quick into that warrior mindset, if you will, and breathe in that warrior mindset, what does the word strike mean to you now?
It's just empowering. One of the, I don't know why I'm on the sports thing here, but 3 strikes and you're out, with baseball. But that to me, as from a warrior mindset, is when you hit a strike in a negative sense, you fail, just let that empower you to do better on the next one, on the next swing.
And the reality here is that in real life, 3 strikes, you are not out in most cases. In some cases, you are. We're not going to be naive and pretend that it's all sunflowers, unicorns, and lollipops. Because in some cases, it is 3 strikes or 2 strikes or 1 strike, and you are out of there. But in most cases, I challenge you to find a case where you're not out after 3 strikes. You got an infinite number of strikes as long as you continue to get up and get going and moving forward.
You only fail if you quit.
That is.
And you may strike out on one thing, but that leads you to something else. Learn your lesson from that. And maybe the one thing didn't work out, but it empowers you if you learn from it, it empowers you to try the next thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a huge one. If you go for it and you strike out and you don't learn, that's failure. Yep. If you go for it and strike out and you learn, that's success.
Yeah. And I think even I don't know any baseball statistics off the top of my head, but I remember, Babe Ruth quotes or certain quotes that, the home runs never really outweighed the actual strikeouts. And on average, even when they were at the top of their game, they still were striking out. They still would have bad games. They would still, it's just part of the process. So the assumption that you can go about it without failure is just not accurate. It's just not. So if you know and you expect that going into it, it just takes the weight off, and a lot of the weight off,
I believe that statistic is that while Babe Ruth was the king of the home runs, he was also the king of the strikeouts.
Thank you.
So he had just as many strikeouts as he did home runs, but he's still considered one of the greatest. Think about it. You're considered one of the greatest when you fail more times than you succeed, and you're still considered one of the greatest. Let's go to the comments right quick. Our buddy Alex Segal.
Hey.
Hey, Alex. It's not about how many times one strikes or fails, but how one gets up, learns from it, and continues.
Yep.
That is true.
So true.
Bobby says, but you always have an infinite number of strikes. You do. In most cases. Again, like we said before, in most cases, you do have an infinite number of strikes, but in some cases, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. You fail once and you're done, but you got to keep moving forward.
Yeah. I've even heard someone talking about whenever they interviewed someone, or maybe it was a quote, but basically part of the interview process is to sit there and ask, what's the biggest failure of your entire career? And the employers were looking for the people who have failed huge. And they mean that in the way of they were willing to go for it. And so it doesn't matter if it worked or if it didn't, or it worked for 5 years or 1 month. If you went for it, that's what they were looking for. And I thought that was a genius little step. So if there are any employer CEOs out there, just an FYI.
That is a good one. That's a really good one. And it's almost a trick interview question. Yeah. Because if you're in an interview and someone asks you, how many times have you failed? What's your first instinct?
You want to say none.
Exactly.
Yeah. But how often, especially here lately in our world, do you hear about vulnerability is what got somebody the opportunity, is what got somebody the next level, the reward. So it pretty works in business too.
Yeah. Pretty much any successful entrepreneur, they don't get there immediately. If you listen to the stories of so many huge successful businesses, it's failure after failure after failure after failure. And they get up and they keep trying, and eventually, and they shift, they learn from the mistakes, they shift, and then eventually they make it. Almost I've never heard of a story where it was immediate success. They all have great stories.
It takes time.
Them too.
It takes time.
Michael Jordan's meets preparation, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Real quick, let's go to Alex with a Michael Jordan quote on success.
To say that.
He says, this is one of my favorite quotes. You guys know that I'm a big Michael Jordan. Like, look, here's my little Michael Jordan there. That's my actual little Michael Jordan. He's here on my desk, and I keep him there to remind me of things like this. But Michael Jordan on success through failure. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. And it finishes off. The only reason I keep on winning is because I never give up, or something to that effect. That's a great quote. Quote. Michael Jordan had that relentless mindset, though.
Yeah.
That he struck, he liked to strike fear in his opponents. He liked to dominate the game. He liked to dominate the court. He liked to dominate the golf course. Anything that he did, he went with that mindset of look, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep pushing forward no matter what. And I'm going to strike hard.
Yeah.
Another definition that we didn't really, that we didn't talk about this morning is to go on strike. But, that standing up for what you believe, standing firm in your values or whatever, that's another kind of avenue that word can go down.
That is a good one. Let me comment on that. Strike the BS out of your life.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How much BS are we carrying in your life that you need to strike that out of there? And one of the big ones that I know I'm guilty of is living in my past.
Yeah.
Not being able to let And it's not even always the big things. It's those little things that just nag at you that you are just not able to let them go.
Like Courtney always says, let it go. Let it go.
Let it go. Strike that stuff out of there. Strike that stuff out of there and let it go. Whew. There's a lot going on here.
I always think of Courtney as Elsa.
Oh, thank you. That's the best. I've always wanted, always thought that compliment would come from a child, but I'll take it. And I love that. Thank you, Michelle.
Wait a minute. Not to sidetrack here, but you've expected this compliment to come.
No, I just now thought about it, but now that it did, I love that.
Nice.
I've never actually seen Frozen.
You need to watch it.
Well, now you need to watch it so you can see what's going on.
Right.
All right. Comment down below. Join the conversation. Like and share this video. And tell us what you think about the word strike. What comes to mind when you hear the word strike? It could be positive. It could be negative. It could be a negative that really turns out to be a positive. This could go so many ways. And of course, the word of the week is part of the Do 52. To get the little sticks that you can draw your own, to get your own word of the week, you can visit houseofshine.com. That's houseofshine.com.
I want to point out something Alex said in the middle of his comment here. It says, I don't want to hire someone who's successful all the time. That's not real life. I want someone who has struggled against all odds. That shows someone has character, and has strength and resilience. And those are things that you want to look for in people you work with or do life with or whatever.
That is true. That is true. I think inherently we want to say that we want to hang out with successful people. But the reality is you want to hang out with people who are successful but have also learned to fail.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, and I don't know why this just popped up, but that's probably one of the reasons that college graduates have such a hard time getting a job and entering the market right after college. They haven't failed at anything. They don't have any real world experience to where they failed consistently or at least a couple of times. So that's a powerful question. Where have you failed? So let me ask you guys this. Let me go to Courtney and then we'll go to Michelle. Courtney, where have you failed?
I procrastinate. And I get lazy, and I do that to hide from things. So that has kind of been my favorite flavor of suffering over the last few years. So I would consider that one big thing. Now, in regards to the positive spin on it, I go for it. I try new things. I don't know. I trust myself I always used to say try everything twice. So I kind of have that mentality in business, and I am good at waking up the next day and trying again despite. So I guess I have that mindset, but I don't know if you're asking the negative or the positive side of that question, to be honest, but yeah.
Whatever comes up, comes up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Michelle, what about you?
Mine, probably one of the biggest failures that I have experienced was in the last year with the failure of a business I worked on for 5 years. And it was very, very painful, but I consider the learning that I received through that to be the most valuable lesson or knowledge and wisdom experience that I've gained through anything. So I wouldn't trade it. It's sad that the business failed, but what I gained from that and the knowledge, the growth is priceless. I wouldn't trade that for anything.
I need to give you a big compliment on that, Michelle, because you said that the business failed, not that you failed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
It took me a while. It took me a while too, because I felt the failure. I felt it for a long time. And it took a while to get there. And yeah, it was hard, but I appreciate it. And I grew, more through that. I grew more than probably anything I've grown through.
And you're going to feel it. We're never, I think one of the misconceptions about self-development, growth, and things like that is that we don't feel failure, that we don't have sadness and all these what quote unquote negative emotions are. We still feel them. We just don't live in them for ever in X amount of time. It's still going to take a little bit of time to get over it, but we don't live there. We don't dwell on it for months and years or whatever it is, right? I mean, for what happened to you, Michelle, you got over it relatively quick.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things.
And I think you also embrace forgiveness for others and for yourself. And that is often the hardest lesson to learn. But that's one that if you learn it big in one area of your life, you often can apply it to others. But yeah, just the forgiveness part of failure is a lot of what has to do with getting up and trying again tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. For me, one of the biggest things that felt like a failure was when I've had a couple of our entrepreneurial hairs that I had to pluck and they didn't go as well as I planned. And one of my big, and I'm not going to say issues because it could be negative and positive at the same time. Don't you just love those when they're negative and positive at the same time? But when I get excited about an idea, man, I get excited about an idea. And there's no stopping me. I go for it. And sometimes it works out great. And sometimes it doesn't work out too great. But man, I get excited and I get pumped up. And what ends up happening is, and I laugh about it now, but in the moment, it's not so funny. But I get other people excited about the idea. And then we're all on board. And then I feel this pressure about this idea having to work and not striking out. And it's just a lot of pressure. And it's the cycle that I've been able to break recently. And when I mean recently, I mean over the last 3 or 4 months, where I still get excited, but I'm very cautious and I understand that it could go one way or the other. But I try not to confuse excitement with getting my hopes up. Because I believe when I start to get my hopes up and have this grand expectation of how it should work out, that's the beginning of the end. But to keep a level head. All right.
I love what Bobby says here. We learn to turn months into weeks, into days, into hours, into seconds to make the shift. And I love that because it's so true. It's the more experience you have and the more times you fail and you get back up, it just shortens that. And it's, it's something else that we can use to take our failures and help someone else speed that process up. So my kids can learn from my failures and not live in them as long as maybe I did when I went through them.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's a big one for our kids too, isn't it? But then we also have to have that balance of letting them fail also on their own accord. And it's hard as a parent. I feel that. And he's only 6. I can only imagine when he gets older.
Okay, Ricardo, look at Joe's message.
All right, let's see.
Look at Joe's comment. It's got your word in it.
Let's see. Doc Joe, all the way from New York. You can only fail if you give up. Linguistically, we interpret the word failure when used as feedback and creates and guides in direction of a well-formed desired outcome.
There's your word, feedback.
The feedback.
Yeah.
It's
feedback.
I'm not going to talk about it because you guys know that's one of my favorite things to talk about. Talk to us real briefly about feedback, ladies.
I'll let Michelle go first.
Okay, so feedback, we talked about it a little bit on our call this morning on the 6 a.m. call. And when we can learn to accept feedback and not consider it criticism, then it just opens you up to growth. It opens you up to improvement. And so I just think that if we can just learn to accept feedback from other people or from, results, whatever it is, feedback comes in all different forms. And if we can accept it as feedback and not criticism, then we can grow through it.
Yeah. I think exactly that. And it's kind of 2 parts to that. Know that don't attach to it as negative or positive. It's just feedback. It's just, and when you do attach to it as negative or positive, either way, you're building resistance to it. And that is not what you want. And then also know that the feedback you get from other people, don't take it personal. They are coming at you from the lens that they are at. So they're only going to translate it as much as they've experienced in life. And that's not negative or positive. That's just something to know that as Michelle's talking to me about her life, she can't relate to it in ways that I can, and vice versa. So it's just something to know and not take it personal when it feels negative. And when it feels like criticism, just deep breath. It's just feedback.
It's just feedback. Yeah. Boom. Man, even though it was the word of the week strike, I love where these conversations go. We touch up on a lot of things, and that's really what this podcast is all about, is growth, self-development, mindset. And some of these topics may seem repetitive, but you know what? It is what it is. It's whatever comes up because we're unrehearsed, unscripted, and it's the thoughts that come when they come. And we don't know who needs to hear this, but I'm sure someone does. So please make sure you like and share this video so we can get the word out. Real quick, Bobby says feedback works incredibly well as long as there is room for communication and understanding on the feedback.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what makes it feedback and not criticism.
Correct.
Exactly what she said. That's what makes it feedback and not criticism. Final words on anything that comes to mind. Courtney.
Be open to it. I think something we talked about this morning that we didn't bring up yet. Just be open to it. The opportunity, be open to failing. If it's something you want to do, it's worth trying and doing bad at first. You'll get better. You'll polish it. So just be open to what the next sign is or the next adventure or the next step is, but just keep going. Yeah.
Good. Michelle.
Yeah, I love this word. It was a good word. I was just going to point out one of the other things we talked about on the word this morning is strike a pose. That's like what came up with all of us, or so many of us this morning. And that to me was that power pose, the Wonder Woman pose, or, that's just another version of the word strike that we talked about that I think was cool.
Yes. Yeah. I think that was, for most of us, we all went to Vogue, strike a pose.
But if you do a power pose, then it changes your state. So change your state immediately with the power pose. Strike a pose.
Strike a pose. Strike a pose. Yes, for sure. All right. This was a really great conversation, guys. For those of you here in the North Texas area, we have a $100 gift card giveaway. Use hashtag #ShopLocal. Support your local businesses, your local restaurants, your local retail places. We're looking for the most unique and funniest picture. Use hashtag #ShopLocal for a chance to win a $100 gift card. And this is brought to you by Sam Pax Ford and Chevrolet. Sam Pax 5-star Ford. Sam Pax 5-star Ford of. Sam Pax 5-star Ford
and Chevrolet of Carrollton.
Yay.
We butcher that every time.
Wow.
We love you, Alex.
We love you, Alex.
We'll get it right someday.
Yes, for sure. To download the podcast, subscribe to YouTube. You can visit forceforgrowth.com for all the information to get this on iTunes, Spotify, iTunes Music, and wherever else you like to hear the audio version of this podcast. I am not a naturally born pitchman, that's for sure. But that's okay. That's okay. Either way, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day, and we'll be back on Wednesday.
Bye, guys.
Bye.